This program is brought to you by the following proud sponsors: the Alltech Media Group, the region's leading multimedia video production and marketing company, and by California CEO Online Video Business Magazine.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to 1 Million Cups here in Riverside County. We have a really amazing presenter today. Her name is Rachel, and she is the founder of Talk Raw, and she's going to be sharing with us something really cool. Now, I just finished about 2 days ago a 30-day challenge. It was a nutritional challenge, but she's going to be talking to us about a 90-day business challenge. And for all the ladies who may be watching this video, this talk is especially for you. So, Rachel, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you everybody for having me. So again, my name is Rachel. I'm with Talk Raw, and I am the creator of the 90-Day Business Challenge. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about my story, how I came up with it, and what I'm doing now with it. So this is kind of hard to see for the audience here, but this is a picture of a clothing store. So when I was in high school, my dream, as with a lot of young women, is to grow up and be able to be around clothes all the time. So I wanted to have a fashion or retail store, clothing store. And so I wanted to go to FIDM, that was the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising, and I went there, and it's super expensive, and was born in Upland, but raised in Fontana, middle class family. And so we couldn't afford FIDM, quite frankly. And my mom had told me that I was going to get a pick and save college education. I was going to go to Chaffey, or junior college, for a couple of years, and then I would transfer to a different school for the last 2 years, because that's really what's you get their certificate, you get your degree, and is the last school you go to. So that's how we were going to save money. So I couldn't go to FIDM, but as luck would have it, I worked really hard and I set goals when I was in middle school and high school, and I actually got a full ride scholarship to Cal State San Bernardino. So I ended up going there, and they didn't have a fashion degree at Cal State. So I thought, well, what's the next best thing? Entrepreneurship. So that's what I studied when I went to Cal State. And so I remember before I started going to Cal State, I was driving in my car and I was just thinking, wow, in 4 years I'll be able to start a business. That's fabulous. And I'll be able to have everything I want. And then after I went to school, I was like, oh my goodness, after 4 years I graduated, I was like, I still don't think I can start a business. Like, I'm young. That's one of my limiting beliefs, is like, I'm too young, I can't start a business. Nobody's gonna buy into what I have to offer. And so I did what a lot of people do. I highly recommend graduate school as a way to avoid the real world for additional 2 to 5 years. So that was the path I chose. And I'm an overachiever, so I didn't just get 1 master's, I got 2. And I actually got that paid for as well through Cal State San Bernardino, because my grades were good, all that jazz. So I studied entrepreneurship. I have my master's in entrepreneurship and my master's in management. And I also did a study on studying the effects of entrepreneurial training and mastermind groups and things like that on high-level CEOs, executives. It was through Strata Strategies, if you've ever heard of that. So I was able to sit in for my master's thesis, observe these people and the changes that this training was taking them through. So that's kind of my general background. And then while I was going to school, I also worked at the Inland Empire Women's Business Center. It's an organization that I absolutely love. It's run through the SBA and actually through Cal State San Bernardino as well. So I worked my way up from a non-paid intern all the way up to doing business counseling, training coordination, scheduling workshops, all that jazz. And then I worked for All Factor Laboratories. They are the creator of the Kite Patch, and they do a bunch of other things. It's kind of a group of companies. So Innovation Economy Corporation is kind of the overarching company. And then specifically, I worked for Nano Engineered Applications and All Factor Laboratories. And it's very science-based, and I wasn't doing as much of the training and the teaching that I really loved, and so I didn't work there for very long, and then I got another opportunity to work where I currently work, which is Logos Lifetime Enterprises, which is another startup company, and it's a financial education company, but they teach about how to start a business, how to grow a business, and basically how to grow and manage your wealth. And so that gets to what I really love, which is the education. So that's where I work now. So how did this all turn into the 90-Day Business Challenge? What I saw is that according to Bloomberg, 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs who start businesses fail within the first 18 months. And I saw that honestly with where the places I was working at. So Olfactor Laboratories, they luckily had investors and have a lot of money that they were able to spend to inject into the business. A lot of businesses don't have that. When I worked at the Women's Business Center, there were these micro businesses, women, men that would come in and they have this dream. Sometimes they can't even find a job. Like there's a reason that they're trying to start a business, but then they don't know how to start a business and it's hard. And then the Women's Business Center is great, but they have all these different workshops and instructors and it's not necessarily a clear path. So one person might come in and learn about social media and the person that's teaching the class is somebody that's an expert in social media, so of course they think that that's the best thing for them. Whereas another person can come in and they'll go to a business plan workshop and the person is going to say, you have to have a business plan before you start a business. And so all these different people are kind of getting different messages depending on when they show up to the center. And sometimes they'll invest in things because an expert tells them that that's what they should invest in, like getting a business plan or something, and it's not necessarily the best fit for them because it's just a quick workshop. So there's all kinds of problems. I personally think a lot of the problems have to do with really the fact that business is hard. So a lot of people, we trade what we want most for what we want now. Like we're in a right now society. We can get anything really on our cell phones. It's at the tip of our fingertips. And so we don't really have that strength in our mindset to have delayed gratification. So that's something that needs to be taught and people need to get used to. That's one problem. People don't have confidence, quite frankly, and especially women. So I was talking to somebody earlier and men are taught from a young age that rejection is okay. If you ask enough girls if they'll date you, maybe one of them will. But women usually are the ones that sit back and they wait for the men to come to them. And so in business, that can be difficult because you have to get over that. You have to overcome that and be confident and be willing to get rejected a lot before you get the successes. So confidence is an issue as well with talking to strangers. So when we're kids, especially little girls, I was a little girl, I know this, your mom tells you don't talk to strangers because they could be a scary person that they can hurt you or kidnap you or something. And so there's all these things that we're taught when we're really young, and then when we're later in life, they don't serve us, but nobody ever reminds us that like, okay, that was to protect you when you were little, but now you're a grown-up. So we just have to re-educate people. Hearing rejection, I talked about that, and obviously the big ones is resources, time, and money. And a lot of people think that it takes a lot of money. It does definitely take time to start a business, but a lot of people really think that you have to have a ton of money before you start, and I personally think that that's just not true. There's ways to do it, especially with crowdfunding and the resources that are out there today. Personally, I think you should pre-sell your product and get people to buy in, and really that's great market research. And then once you have the money, then you go create the thing. But that's basically what I teach. So another symptom is that there are more women starting businesses today than ever before, yet only 12% of female-owned businesses generate more than $100,000 in revenue a year. And I see the reason why is because for centuries, many women have given care, their skills, their talents, everything they have, without ever expecting anything in return, right? Like that's just what we're raised to do. Like you clean the house, you do the dishes, and the model is shifting now. Like we're not in the 50s or the 40s anymore, but that's still like we're raised with that. And our grandma, it's like you are supposed to go on a certain path and you're supposed to be giving and benevolent and not ever ask for anything in return. And we see that in the workplace today. Women are making a lot less money than men dollar to dollar. It's about 78 cents per dollar that a man makes. So just kind of like, well, why? So my hypothesis is that people have been trained in an industrial model that focuses on creating employees and entrepreneurs, right? So when we go to school, we're taught to, even when we're in elementary school, like you listen to what the teacher says, and then you have these very specific breaks when the teacher allows you to go on them, and then you come back, and then you might have a little bit of homework, and then you leave. And so our whole lives, we're just used to this industrial mindset. But then when we grow up and we want to be entrepreneurs, we have no idea how to do it because we've never been given that freedom to test in it. It's like we practice being an employee all this time and make mistakes in that world. And then we get out there and it's like, okay, you go get a job and you should know how to do that. But you've never played and practiced in being an entrepreneur, starting something on your own. Again, like I said, parents teach us not to talk to strangers, and really that's one of the one ways to grow a business is to get out and meet new people, because those are your potential customers. Friends and family tell us we're crazy if we want to start a business, so environments are not conducive to entrepreneurship because people just aren't used to it. There's a lot less entrepreneurs than there are employees in the world. That's just the way it is. And so if you're surrounding yourself with employees, they might even be people that love you, and they're just going to try to protect you because they don't want you to fail and to have to deal with all this pain, but really they're holding you back from potentially getting those successes too. Environments and trainings are not conducive to entrepreneurship. Schools, like I just said, they just don't teach you how to be an entrepreneur. And the biggest thing is people don't know what they don't know. So we have no clue what's out there if somebody has never told us. And sometimes we don't even have the right questions to ask people to get the information that we don't know. So and then we have one other symptom, and this is really close to my heart. Before, I used to work for the Inland Empire Women's Business Center, which is a nonprofit. And a lot of nonprofits do amazing things within the community. There's a lot of specific nonprofits that are to help entrepreneurs, but they have issues too. So they have limited funds, limited time, limited employees, limited networks, and the big thing is that they have quotas that they have to reach, and they have to spend a lot of their time raising money, so that takes away from them doing their mission because they have to go raise funds. They also have to go out and they have to meet certain goals that are dictated by the grants, but those goals may or may not help them actually really help people because they're focusing on specific numbers, just kind of like with No Child Left Behind, right? So we're focusing on tests and not necessarily the results that people are getting. So a lot of times with grants and things like that, we're focusing on these very specific numbers, but are the people really getting the help they need? And then they're spending a lot of their time on the numbers and on raising money, but then that makes less time for them actually doing their mission. So my hypothesis is that nonprofits need help too. So they need donations from the community, but especially with the Women's Business Center, it's a double-edged sword because the people that they're supposed to help, that the grant dictates that they help, are low-income people generally. They help all people, but those are the people that specifically the grant dictates that they help. But they're helping those people, and they have a scarcity mindset. They don't give back, and a lot of times, quite frankly, they can't give back. And so there's this huge problem of like limited resources of time and money, and the people really need the help, but then even the people that work within the organization, they only have so much time to help them, and they're not being served as well. And quite frankly, people in low-income situations, their environment is less conducive to entrepreneurship because most of the people they're surrounded by are low-income as well. Their environments, they're low-income and they're probably employees, and so they don't have mentors as much as, if somebody was living in Beverly Hills or something, there's probably more entrepreneurs around them and somebody that can take them under their wing and help them start their business. But if you're in a low-income environment, then it's everybody else that's just employees. There's scarcity mindset, there's a lot of fear, and so it's really hard to get in the right environment and get out of that. So we know a few other knowns, so that's kind of the major problem. But I know that, and I know it because I've gone through it, but people will do a lot to win something. So we see that there's triathletes and these crazy things people put themselves through, and they'll do this crazy competition, put themselves through hell basically, and for what? For a trophy, maybe a little bit of money, right? But they want to win something. So people are driven to win. We see that in sports when you're a kid, like you play soccer, you get all beat up, football, and it's just so that you can win a trophy and say, I won. So people will do a lot to win. And people learn, we know this from little kids, people learn really well when they're just playing, right? So when the stakes aren't super high, when they're just having fun, like little girls and little boys, they'll play house and they'll play around and they'll mimic what the big kids, the grown-ups are doing, because that's just what they see as fun and they have fun with that. And people will take more action when they have skin in the game. So that's one other problem with like the Women's Business Center. They offer a lot of free resources, but if I give you something for free and it would change your life, the simple fact that it was free, you might be like, oh yeah, I'll get to that. Because you're more likely, if I give you two things and one of them you paid for, you're more likely to read a book that you paid for than the one that you got for free. Even if the one that's for free would change your life forever in a positive way, you're just like, you're invested in the one that you paid for. And then, like I said before, people need the right environment, people need support, they need mentors. And because of the industrial training, many people, quite frankly, especially with entrepreneurship, they need to be told what to do. Because when starting a business, you have to get out of your comfort zone, but just like a personal trainer, people will work out themselves and then they'll plateau and then they get a personal trainer because they need somebody to teach them, like, no, this is what you have to do. I know it hurts, but you have to do it so that you can reach your goals. And so that's kind of what people need with starting a business as well. So my solution is the 90-Day Business Challenge. So it's basically like P90X, if you've ever heard of that, but it's for business. So basically what the training does is it builds confidence for people. So I start from the very beginning with getting rid of people's limiting beliefs. Mine was, I'm too young, nobody will listen to what I have to say. And I still get that. People look at me and they're like, how old are you? What are you doing starting a business? But I have an actual method of how I got over it, and I teach that to other people of how they can get over that limiting belief as well. And really, once you get over it, you still have to go out and take action, because you're not going to fully get over that. It's been ingrained in your mind for years and years and years. So you have to get over the belief, rewrite it, and then you have to go take action and actually prove yourself wrong, that belief was silly and that this new belief is a lot better. So it helps them build confidence. I focus on daily consistent action to help them reach their long-term goals. So it's telling them what they need to do to actually get it done. And it's actually, even though the program is 90 days, but because they've done something for 90 days, they've built a habit, and then once I let them go, they have the habit of consistently working on their business. It teaches people what they don't know. So I add in there that they need to go out and do market research. And I have them, they come up with a business idea, and then they go out and they test it with real people. Because a lot of people, we say, I think this would be great, and you might do research on just Googling things, but you never go out in the world and actually talk to people. So you never have any idea of whether people really want this thing. And you can actually get really good feedback from other people and add and twist your idea to make it a lot better and serve people better if you're actually getting feedback from them. It provides the right environment for growth. So I meet with the people weekly. So they have daily challenges that they do on their own, but then there's weekly support. So they come in, they get education, and then they also get brainstorming and support from other people that are going through the same thing. So it's providing them with the network that they need for growth and the environment that they need. And it also requires them to have skin in the game. So they have to pay a fee to be in the program, but then they're invested. It focuses on getting feedback before they spend money. So I started, my business was the 90-Day Business Challenge. So I came up with it. I came up with a speech. I created strategic partners. I went and I sold it. Before I ever created it, I just outlined what the steps would be, the 90 steps. I was confident about what I could deliver, and then I went out and sold it. And I figured if I could sell it, then I would create it. And if I couldn't sell it, then I failed fast, and I can just stop and go do something else. But luckily, I was able to sell from the beginning. And so that's what I teach people to do, is pre-sell, find a way to make money from the beginning so that you're not spinning your wheels, wasting a lot of time creating something that nobody wants. And then focus, like I said, focus on making money before spending money. And then the cool thing is that it generates revenue for nonprofits. So because I'm new, I don't have a list. Who am I going to market to? So I partner with nonprofits because I see that their problem is raising money, and they don't have the time and the resources to create a program like this. So I partner with them. All they have to do is provide me access to the people that they work with, and then I provide the solution for those people, and I provide the money that the Women's Business Center or other organizations like that needs. So it's a win-win all around. The delivery format, so basically it's educational workshops that teaches them the fundamentals of business, daily actionable challenges. We have weekly group meetings, and then there's online and offline think tanks. So we have a Facebook group set up, and then we meet every week, and the women all get to know each other, or men, if I've just always had women in the program. But they all meet together and they share resources, because I'm only one person, and even I have my master's, I had the education, I'm good at this stuff, and I have a good network, but it's so much better. Like 1 + 1 can equal 3 or 11 or so much more when the more people you have and the more influencers and people from different backgrounds, because we all have these diverse networks and diverse ideas. So when we come together, we can really create a lot more. And this is the great part. So because I'm young and I like to have fun and people are competitive, I made it a competition. So I want people to support each other and hold each other accountable, but it's a competition, there's recognition, there's a cash prize, so they can win $1,000 if they go through the program and win, and that holds them accountable to actually do the daily challenges, because they're getting points throughout the challenges. So even if they don't feel comfortable, it's like, well, even if I fail, like if I go out and I try to sell something and I fail, you're gonna get rewarded for failing. if that makes sense. So there's still, even if they just go through the program and try, there's a potential to win something. And so it gives people the motivation they need to actually go for it. So if they win the challenge, they can win $1,000. And I even guarantee it. So I know that people, because I went through the system and I was able to go through it and make at least $1,000. That's my guarantee, that you make at least $1,000 if you go through the program. And if you don't, and you did everything I said, then I'll give them their money back. Additional business or benefits. So like I said, for currently, my only strategic partner is the Women's Business Center. So I split the proceeds with them. And then it has the built-in accountability and the fun. Let's see. So current needs right now is just I'm looking for additional strategic partners, sponsors. Currently I'm funding the challenge, and if people win it, then it just comes out of my revenue, which is fine, but I would love to have a sponsor and somebody that can award that cash prize. And then obviously just exposure and marketing so more people know about the challenge. And that's it. Do I stay on?
Yeah, so we'd like to ask you a couple of questions. I'd like to start with one,
Okay.
and then we'll open it up to the audience. But how many challenges have you run currently? Have you done one or two? How many 90-day?
One. So
Okay.
I started this at the end of 2014. So my last day of the first 90-day business challenge is not this Saturday, but the next Saturday.
Okay.
So I've run the first one. Yeah.
And can you maybe tell us maybe even just one story about maybe somebody who went through the challenge and...
I'm glad you asked. Yeah, let me. I have testimonials right here. So Patricia Minot, she is amazing. It's funny, all the women in my program, I had no idea. I thought I would get these people that probably weren't educated. Maybe they were, but they maybe were in, like a teacher or something, like something completely different from business. She's actually just went to finish law school. And so she's brilliant, but she owns All About Laundry in Alpine Gardens. It's up in Big Bear. So she's a residential property owner, basically a landlord. But then as part of she purchased this whole property, and part of her purchase, she actually had to buy a laundromat. And so she had to figure out how the heck she's gonna run that laundromat when she purchased that whole thing. And so she said Big Bear Laundry is in the repair business. So basically she had a lot of problems. There were problems, and the business was losing money, and it wasn't necessarily above the board when she purchased it. And so we were figuring out, like, how the heck can we make this business profitable? And within brainstorming and figuring out what we were going to do, and she did a lot of research, and it was amazing. She hired actually her employee's son to go around and do all this research based on what the questions that we came up with. And he went to all her competitors, because he was just a 14-year-old kid that said, like, oh, I'm doing a survey, do you mind taking this? And all her competitors gave her all this information because it was just a 14-year-old kid, and they were like, sure. So it was amazing. So she got so much great market research and feedback from that. But she ended up, her employee had amazing skills of repairing all of these machines and businesses. And as she was doing research and asking all people within her industry what was going on, they needed repair services, basically. And she had a guy, but none of the other laundromats had a guy. And so she created a whole nother side business, basically, of leveraging his skills and creating a whole, basically, repair business within this. So before, she was paying him to just manage the laundromat, and that's really a less than part-time job, because all you have to do is open the door, close the door, clean it, repair it a little bit. It doesn't take that much time, but she didn't want to reduce his hours or lay somebody off, because she's just a good person, quite frankly. So she was like, rather than being negative and being like, okay, I'm going to cut your hours, and thinking in a scarcity mindset, she said, what skills do you have? How can I monetize those? And she worked out the whole contract. And so Alliance is basically, she calls it the head of the octopus, but it's basically a company in the Midwest that manages, it's kind of a monopoly for all laundromats. Like, they sell all the machines and help with the repair work and everything. So she basically contacted them, let them know what kind of resource she had in this person, and she created a contract, and they just got their application approved to be the repair services in the Inland Empire, because there's a couple of them in OC, but they don't want to come out here. And so this is a huge, huge opportunity for her, and that's just one example of what happened in the 90-day business challenge. So yeah.
Really cool. Robert?
Okay, Rachel, what business space do you consider yourself in? who are your competitors in your space, and how do you differentiate yourself from your competitors?
Okay, so I would say it's just the educational, like business educational space. So if you've heard of like Tony Robbins, obviously everybody knows of Tony Robbins. So that's kind of inspirational speaking, public speaking, seminar type companies. I would say I'm kind of in there, but I've gone to tons of those, and where I currently work, my bosses, we're in that business, in that industry. But the model that they currently use is usually a 3 to 4 day workshop. So they come, they really inspire you, they teach you how to do stuff, and it's really great content, all of it, and it leaves you motivated, right? But it's kind of like drugs, because there's this really high, and then you go home after the 3 days and you're back in the real world, in your real environment, and you crash, right? Just like with drugs, same thing. And so they usually have an upsell, and at the 3-day event, they'll sell you into something else that's generally really expensive. And I've been part of those programs. Those programs are really good, but they're really expensive. So how do we help the people that are low income and the nonprofits and things like that? So they're not necessarily helping nonprofits. They're not helping low income. So there's the gap in the market there. And just because people are low income or even medium income, that doesn't mean that they don't have money, like especially money to invest in a program that would really help them. So that's what I see as the problem. And then it's just the long term. So those 3 days of really good content, it's just really fast, and it's just overwhelming, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like how am I going to do all this? And then all this fear and stuff comes up. So that's why I stretch my differentiators. My program is stretched out, and it's creating relationships with everybody in the brainstorming. So I could easily do what I do in probably 3 days, 12-hour days, but it doesn't serve people. And I've been through that, and it's like, yeah, it inspires you a little bit and it takes you a little step further, but I want people to start making big strides and building the habits that they need. I think habits are just so vital, and that goes back to that education, that industrial model education. So we're so used to being told what to do and being employees, and so we get like, even if somebody teaches us, this is how you be an entrepreneur, it's like, okay, great. And then you go back home and it's like, but it's so comfortable to be, an employee and just in this industrial mindset. And so if you like slowly break it down and teach people and build the habit of like, okay, every day you're going to work on your business, every day, and if you don't, and you're going to get rewarded with points, and if you don't, we're all going to yell at you when you come back in every week, then they really start to build the habits. And that, I just want to focus on long-term growth and like actually getting people to change and make a difference in the world, because people have amazing gifts and amazing businesses, but they're scared and they don't have the right habits to get it out there. And so that's what I want to do.
Inspirational speaker for low-income businesses and people.
Part of it, but it's not just low income. It's, I would say, low to mid-range, or just people that really appreciate value, or even people that have never been to experience the, like the Tony Robbins and things like that. If they've experienced Tony Robbins, then they're going to go with Tony Robbins because he's great. But Women's Business Center and like a lot of these, when people are just getting started, they go to the SBA, and they've never been exposed to that world. And quite frankly, Tony Robbins and all those kind of companies, they've even done statistics. It's about 1 or 2% of people actually ever do something with that information. And I am on a mission to change that statistic and actually help people do it. And I guarantee the program, they have to put the work in, but it's like, no, if you come and you show up every single day and you do the challenges, then you'll get results. And if you don't, because it's my mission that you do get results, you can have your money back, because right. I'm not into that.
We got 2 more questions. We'll start with Steve.
Just quick comment that I like how you emphasize a lot of selling in your program, and I see that a lot. That entrepreneurs are maybe very good at solving a problem or creating a new product, but there's a whole other aspect to growing the business, and then that requires taking the action, like you mentioned, and then doing actually some selling. And I was wondering if you could just explain a little bit more about the win-win-win relationship that you mentioned with the nonprofits and the strategic partners. How does that work again, and what? How do you position that?
Okay, so there's basically 3 stakeholders. There's me, I want to make money. There's the nonprofit, they need to make money. And then there is the person that's taking the class, right, my program, that their goal is obviously to make money, right? And so I kind of saw that. It's like, I can help you, the participant, make money, but you have to pay me. So we're going to do a transaction. You pay me, I'll give you this training, but I'm going to guarantee that you make money, and you're also going to get the competition. So you're getting value. You exchange money for value. That's that relationship. I don't have a list right now. I'm working on that. And then I'm just one person. I'm a small business owner myself. So I need resources. I need the people that are in this space that want this information, the participants. I need a location that I can work at, right? Because I don't want to pay rent. Like, how can I leverage these resources? That's what the nonprofit has, right? But they need money. And so I split the proceeds with them. I say, we're going to partner. Here's the thing. Best case scenario, I get a lot of people in my program, you make money. Worst case scenario, and then you let me use your training resources and that's it. But I just fill in when you're not using it anyways, because they have extra capacity, right? Worst case scenario is that it doesn't work, and then I just don't do it. So it doesn't, I didn't lose any money because I didn't go and rent a facility, and then I just leveraged their list. So I didn't go spend a lot of money on marketing. All I do is show up and teach a free workshop that gives value, introduces my program or a webinar or something like that. And then if it works and then we sell, or I sell, then I split the proceeds with them. So they make money, I make money, and the participant gets what they want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Dwayne.
My question relates to scaling. As this thing grows,
Mhm.
how do you see your role changing? It seems like you would have less time to spend with each group or each person in the group. So is there a set limit to how big this can grow, or would you be deputizing other people that you've trained that have been through the program or so on?
Right. That's definitely a model. So there's lots of different ways that you can do it. So I could go into more of a webinar format, so I can get a lot of people, to do the challenge. The challenge is already done. So the weekly, daily, or the daily stuff that they're going to have to do, they can get that. I can do that to 1 million people, no problem. But what I see as the true value is the people meeting, right? And then having a coach or somebody that knows a little bit more than they know and can kind of input that and impart that onto them.
How often do they meet?
So my first program met every other week, every
Okay.
2 weeks on a Saturday for like 6-7 hours. Now I'm going to do every week for 3 hours, so a
Okay.
shorter period of time, because I want my Saturdays off. So that's completely selfish,
that
but
makes sense.
and I'll change it as I see, as my schedule changes and as I see what works for other people. But I think other people want their Saturdays off too. So one evening a week, I think people can manage that. So back to the original question, which was, now I went on a scroll moment.
How do you scale?
How do I scale? Okay, so you could do a webinar thing where they have the content, and then there's teaching components, because there are some, especially in the beginning, where it's like, this is what you really need to know, and I could just do a recorded webinar and teach them. And then you can do question and answers. So maybe I do a webinar that's only certain times, and then I show up at the end of the webinar that's already pre-recorded, and I just answer questions. Or I can get on the phone after and say, okay, what are your questions? Let's talk about it. So that's one model, and you can combine the two, but also, like you said, of getting other people that are interested and have the skills to do the program, and then they can do it as well. But really, I think I've already developed the program. Women's business centers and the strategic partners that I would already be working with, I could easily license it to them, because they have people that have my same background and experience, or very similar to it, because I worked there.
They could just tap into the program.
They can just, it's like, because they don't have, they have these great ideas, but because of all their grant and their funding, all the like bureaucracy stuff they have to do, they just don't have time to think creatively like that. And they have amazing ideas, but for them to think creatively and then actually do it, it's like, well, they have to be doing the reporting too, so they just don't have the time.
Right.
So it's like, look, I've created this program for you, you can do it, I'll teach you what you need to know, and then you just support, kind of like 1 Million Cups, right? Like there's all these little ones, and there's somebody that's like, okay, you're the person in charge of it. It can be a similar model, and then I can even come in and I could train them so that it has my DNA, and it's like, okay, I want to make sure that this is the key component that they're getting this day. But yeah, you could definitely give it to other people.
Okay. Are there any more questions? All right, one last question.
What can the 1 Million Cups community do to help you further your business?
I'm looking, as I go back, I'm looking for additional strategic partners. So any like women's business centers or SBDCs, there's veterans organizations. So right now I'm focusing on women, but what I see as really good resources for it to go to is either at-risk youth, because I think entrepreneurship, a traditional getting a job, they might have a background that's not conducive to that. And so if they could learn how to start a business, and quite frankly, a lot of them know how to hustle already. So they could be that's a great market. So if there's people that are interested in this program that have to do with at-risk youth, let me know. I'd be happy to work with them. and veterans. So a lot of veterans actually come back from the military, and sometimes it's hard for them to get a job because they were in the military, now they don't have degrees, right? But they're very hardworking, they're dedicated, they're just missing a few things to then be entrepreneurial. And I know a few organizations that work with veterans and help them not necessarily start businesses, but go get kind of side gigs. And it's like, well, why don't they just start businesses? And I know a lot of veteran-owned businesses, and because of that, like, this is what you have to do, I don't care if you're uncomfortable, just do it. I mean, that's what you're trained in the military to do. They're really good entrepreneurs when they actually have the right training to go and do it. So those kind of organizations, I'm looking to partner with all of those types of organizations, and then sponsors and more exposure. So if you're interested, let me know. I actually offer the first week for free, just so people can test it out and see it. So my email is rachel@talkraw.org, and if you're interested, just send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to send you the first week so you can get a taste of the challenge.
All right. Well, Rachel, thank you for coming to
thank
1 Million
you
Cups.
so
That was
much.
fantastic.
Thank
All right.
you.
This program was brought to you by the following proud sponsors: the Alltech Media Group, the region's leading multimedia video production and marketing company, and by California CEO Online Video Business Magazine.